This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Hilario Itriago on the show. He is the president of Boxx Insurance, which is a cyber insurance company. We're going to talk about cybersecurity and the reasons why we probably want to look into cyber insurance if we do not already have it. But anyway, with all that being said, Hilario, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into doing this and why it's important to you.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I'm Venezuelan by origin. I've been in the insurance world about 23 years. Before that, I worked in the insurance and the oil industry in Venezuela. But then I, got myself into insurance, been in the property and casualty insurance world for all those 23 years, worked in a corporate level in 16 years. And then in 2016, I got myself into this insurtech world, which is, our fintech version of insurance. And one of the, key aspects of insurtech is, new risks, how to tackle those new risks in the modern world, especially, after the pandemic with, such a digital environment in which we live in. And cyber is one of those risks. It's the most universal one out there. It affects the richest of the rich and the poorest of the poor and the biggest of the corporations and the smallest of small and medium businesses. So I got myself to that in 2021 when I joined Boxx. Vishal Kundi, who's the co-founder and CEO of Boxx, it's a good friend back from my corporate days at RSA Insurance in the UK. And he offered to join the project in 2021 right after we raised our Series A. And the project was to lead the business in the United States, which is the biggest insurance market in the world. And I thought it was a phenomenal opportunity. So that's how I landed here.
Awesome. So when it comes to like cybersecurity and insurance and things like that, what has changed in the past several years? Because I've seen, just as a leading an IT team and having to purchase insurance, I've seen the prices go up. I've seen a lot more claims coming that way. What's different now?
Yeah, so I think that you could look at it in terms of maturity waves, for want of a better example. I think, 5-6 years ago, well, first of all, cyber insurance have existed for a number of decades now because, large corporations have had cyber insurance for a while. I think the cyber insurance that we talk about today, it's the one that's really proliferated right after the pandemic, with small and medium businesses as well as individuals and families, being far more exposed online, more connected, more interconnected. And so, we all need to be protected around that. So I think what has changed is, 5 years ago when these waves started, everybody in cyber insurance, go get it. And so insurance companies were saying, yeah, you want a cyber insurance? I'll sell it to you. Here you go. And not so much risk management frameworks were applied to that. And so when you actually go at the market like that, you get everything. You get the people who are really, concerned about, having multi-factor authentication or making sure that they have a password manager or this and that. As well as you have people who say, I got cyber insurance, I don't need anything else. And so that first wave of maturity would have been everybody with very little risk management controls being requested from the insurance companies or the MGAs, et cetera. I think that then followed a great deal of claims. And that's when, the risk takers in this world said, hey, hang on, we need to apply something here that doesn't mean that everybody and anybody in whatever circumstance can get cyber insurance. We need to get some sort of risk frameworks in place so that there's minimum controls that people have so we don't get ourselves as exposed. And naturally, with doing that, you get the maturity curve a little bit higher because people, need to know a little bit more how to protect themselves. They have first and second lines of defense before they actually hit the insurance coverage. And I would say that we're in that second wave today. We are in a world where when we are offering cyber insurance to small and medium businesses, we are requesting a set of minimum controls around what I mentioned earlier, MFA, firewall, those kind of things. And also we are advocating for a lot more training, a lot more knowledge, and training for, employees, individuals, families out there. And I think that's taking the cyber risk management and the cyber maturity of the businesses and individuals, families who are getting protection into a better level.
Yeah. And that's something I've noticed over the last, let's say 5 years or so, is that our requirements for renewing, cyber insurance has been one of those things where we have to now prove that we have, MFA set up, that we have to prove that we have, certain levels of firewalls. We have to prove that we have, good backups and things like that, versus before it was more or less just checking a checkbox and sending in, a form. Have you seen that like companies that this requirement is causing, smaller businesses to kind of become more mature in their cyber practices?
Yeah. I think there's no doubt that insurance companies are doing a better job at explaining that, those minimum controls are important, and not necessarily just, the risk transfer companies just taking that as a requirement just because they say so. There is logic behind the madness, for want of a better description, as to why they're asking for those things. I think naturally that makes people more, trustworthy of, okay, there's something here for me to, be better protected as part of being protected by an insurance policy, as opposed to I need to have this thing because it's incremental and it's a pain in the back. So I think that's all contributing to a far better control framework for the entire ecosystem, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it is. It's one of those things where are you? And what do you think? Yeah, or what can you help me with as far as as a leader? Should I put more money in preventing cyber attacks or recovering from cyber events?
So I'm a big believer in prevention, and we believe that cyber in itself is one of those risks that are better served if there are prevention tools out there that are mitigating risks in the first place. And so doing that also brings a layer of self-awareness that cyber, it's also very universal. The way a company is being hacked last week is not necessarily the same way that it's going to be tried to be hacked next month. And so it's a risk that makes people to be fully aware on a day-to-day basis. Now, I think investing in that prevention also allows insurance companies to provide a better deal for the insurance, coverage and the kind of services that they provide pre or post breach. And so we believe very strongly that the more we see those preventions being dynamic and being part of, the lines of defense that a customer actually has, the better deals we can actually put forward as part of the insurance coverages.
So another service that I saw you guys offer is the virtual CISO. Can you talk a little bit about that and why a company might want to look in that direction?
Oh, that's a great question, and one that we love. So when you think about businesses, large businesses would be traditionally the ones that have large IT departments, they would have their own chief information security officer. Um, he or she would have their own teams. So they're very well structured and they have very mature capability around that. When you move into the small and medium business, even some medium businesses will also have that framework in place, on a lower scale than big corporations would, but some of them would. But when you look at the companies, in the under $100 million in revenue, under $50 million in revenue, you're talking about the smaller segment of SME. And those are the guys that are really, in the startup mode, in the small, medium business mode, growing their business, trying to get their way ahead. And they don't have that many resources to put into these type of capabilities because it's expensive, right? And so that's when our VCSO, product and offering comes into play. We basically say, listen, we understand that you might not have these capabilities in place. What we have is a set of tools and services that can come in and help you actually have those services on demand. We would be in a position to tell you by doing so, what's your maturity level? What are your areas of, of concern, and how do you need to actually take care of them? And that allows us also to then give some companies a better path to insurability, and a better positioning with regards to how do they get that prevention layer that we were talking about earlier, as part of their risk management framework, together with a policy that we can also provide. So, in summary, it's, get the big company information security staffing without all the salary and all the expense of it. We provide that on demand, and we help you actually get to the level that would allow you to be, insured with the right coverage and the right positioning on capabilities.
So do you think this is more of like do you see more customers coming after they've been hit with some kind of cyber event, whether it be a ransomware attack or data exfiltration or something like that? Or is it more like more people are doing this first?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say that there's a little bit of everything under the sun, right? There's people who, have had to trigger the requirement to get cyber insurance because of a contract or a requirements through, a supply chain as a provider. And they say, okay, actually, we need to do this because we're getting into that space and it's a requirement now. There's others who are naturally proactive and they go and look for, a small coverage, even though it's not being requested, but they're aware that this is a real risk and they could get in, but, they don't spend a fortune on it. But there's also people who have been victims of it, and they naturally say, I was one of those that thought I would never get that, these cyber attacks would happen to someone else, but not me. And now I know that it could happen to me. It happened. I had a bad experience. Some are worse than others. Some are not necessarily that bad, but they come to us and say, what do I need to do? What should I really do here? Because I don't really now want to go and get the wrong policy either, right? It's a complex risk. And so people are coming to say, help me out, help me understand this. Help me buy the right coverage, help me, with the right services, and what do they mean for my business?
Yeah. I think that is one of the things that, especially when you're in a small business, you may see one of your competitors or someone else in your industry, or maybe a peer somewhere that they get attacked. And then you start thinking, what, am I doing the right things? Am I next? Am I vulnerable? How do I figure this out? And I think that would be probably the people that are interested in coming out and trying to get some help in these areas.
Yeah. I mean, in general, if I get your question right, I mean, everybody always like to understand better the product before they purchase, right?
Yeah.
And so, the conversation that we typically have with brokers is, help them understand, what are the real risks that their customers are involved in? What are the real scenarios that could actually happen regardless of the industry? What are the specific scenarios that could happen precisely because they're in a particular industry? And so taking people through that conversation and that journey, it's part of what makes everybody go like, oh, okay, now I understand this. I never thought of X or Y, and you're making it clearer to me. The second aspect to that is when you're actually, you have actually bought a policy from us, right? And your typical mindset would always be like when you and I buy car insurance or when
Mm-hmm.
I buy home insurance. I buy the policy. I don't need to call this insurance company, and the insurance company is really never going to call me unless two things happen. I call them if I have a claim, or they call me if they need to renew. And maybe it's not an insurance company; it's your insurance broker, right? We think that because cyber has this dynamic nature that I was talking about earlier, when you buy a policy from us, small and medium businesses would get services like, dynamic notifications. So we would have your URL, we would have your e-commerce site, we would have certain credentials from your employees, and we can activate services that actually notify you when, for example, doing dark web monitoring or hacker chatter monitoring, if your company, your industry, the state where you're located or whatever is actually or are being victims of a hack.
Mm.
And so we start actually being proactive without a claim ever happening to say, oops, watch out. We've noticed that there's a hacker chatter that we monitor that in the logistics industry, in the state where you're based, someone got hacked and, this is pertinent to you. Or we've actually found some of your credentials leaked out there. It's important that you take these steps to protect yourself, et cetera, et cetera. And we've never found a broker or a customer that says, wow, this is really helpful and this is really adding value to me. And I think that is the nature of a risk like cyber. You need to be on top of things day in and day out. You need to be proactive about protecting against the risks. And you need to say, I'm here, whether you need me or not, I'm here.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I do want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about your home offering, because as a parent and, the three kids that are getting into technology and getting into being online in the online world, how important is it for individuals to start looking at, protecting their home and their family with cyber insurance? Something I've never talked about on the show is having cyber insurance for your family, but you guys offer something for that, right?
Man, absolutely. You're touching one of my favorite topics here because, again, the natural sequence of cyber has been corporations, businesses, etc. Never really individuals and families. We've had this wave of the old, what I call the old, antivirus providers like Norton, like McAfee, all these guys saying, oh, actually, it's no longer the virus, it's the fact that you need some cybersecurity, and we're going to give you all these alerts and all that, which is great. I think there's a great value and a great market for that. But the reality of the matter is that more and more individuals, more and more families are connected to the internet, multi-device connected to the cloud, 24/7, bunch of credentials flying around, and a lot of sensitive information on your computers, on your devices at home that you don't even realize are out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that we can offer a family coverage, an individual coverage that will take that concern of, oh, what if I'm a victim of online fraud? What if I'm a victim of a cyber attack? How would I know if I'm a victim of a cyber attack? Data breach, my identity, how do I recover that? And then when you think about your family, even more important, what about cyberbullying? How do I protect those nearest to me with a cyber policy that is not just an antivirus or a VPN or, all those good stuff that the other vendors provide? Well, we have a product for that. It's a very affordable, $5.50, $6 a month on an individual basis, $10 a month on the family basis. But you protect your entire family, you protect their devices, and you actually start getting that sense of greater comfort when you know that you have 12, 15, 20 devices connected to the cloud at any point in time in your house. And if something goes wrong, you actually have someone to cover your back.
Yeah, no, I think that's really valuable. And, it's just one of those things that we live in a new world now where, you've got to protect all areas, not just worried about, homeowners insurance and auto insurance, but also thinking about, what happens if my identity gets stolen? What happens if my systems get hacked and I lose something, or my bank account gets taken over and things like that? How do I get things back?
Exactly. And having someone that you can actually call, right? And say, this happened to me. Is this, am I a victim? Have I been a victim, first and foremost? Because like it happens with businesses, with individuals, families, sometimes you think something funny is going on, but you don't really know whether you've been a victim or not. And so the fact that you can actually call and talk to a specialist that tells you, let's just go through these steps and validate that you've actually been hacked or not. Many times you're not even a victim of a hack. You're not even a victim at all. You just need to have the comfort that, someone takes you by the hand and validate or not. And in the event that you have been, then, okay, let's just take the right steps now to actually file this claim and see how we're going to help you from the get-go. What do you need right now? What's the first thing that you need? Do you need to talk to a lawyer? Do you need to actually go talk to, unfortunately it happens, but on the cyberbullying front, it's more about, a psychologist, to help your kid or that member of the family that has been a victim of cyberbullying. It's not only for kids, it's also for adults. So, I think that that value add of, even though it's a digital product, to have an offline support that can help you and take you by the hand, it's completely valuable and something you don't think naturally of a cyber product.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, because a lot of people just don't know to, they need to educate their children anyway, like as far as online gaming and what information's good to share, what information's not good to share. And I think having someone that can help educate the family on those matters ahead of time is really important before things get, go down a road where it's too late.
Exactly right.
And that's one of the things that we've tried to do with our children is to, first put up a lot of limits, put up some filtering and things like that on the home front, but also talk to them about, the reason why it's important not to tell people where you live, not to tell, not to give out your phone number, not to, or your email, or and not make sure your username is not your real name.
Exactly right.
Just little things like that to help educate them in the path of what could go wrong, and that these people online aren't necessarily who they say they are.
And I tell you what, just to share an anecdote, one of the things that come with our family product is an app that allows you to, put your credentials and monitor them. And, in the moment you do that, we can tell you whether those credentials have been exposed in prior breaches, which of those are, and the magnitude of them and all that. Until you see that, like, you don't really realize how exposed you are. And so the interesting aspect of it is that when we do that and we see the faces of people, they go, oh my God, actually, have I been, has my email been in that many breaches? And even I tell you my own example, you find companies that don't even exist anymore, but they were part of a breach in 2019. And your credential was part of that. And so that is one of those, what I call an oh my God moment, that even with just purchasing the product, but starting to use the services, you fall into this reality world that you have already been exposed, even though not breached, and therefore you need to have another level of urgency about all this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the important things to realize is that, I've been using tools basically because I'm in the industry now. I work in technology and in cyber, and just to see even some of the very reputable companies that you might not even think about having your credentials out there get breached, and there's still fallout from Adobe breaches from 10 years ago. Where credentials got stolen, and then you think Adobe's a very reputable company. Yes, but things happen.
Exactly right.
Hilario, this has been a great conversation. How can people connect with you online, learn more about the things you have, especially on the home front? I think that's really an important place for people to start looking at protection that they're probably not protecting right now. So how can people connect with you online, learn more about what you're doing, and and see what services you guys offer?
Sure. I mean, the easiest path would be to contact me directly, hilario.itriago at boxxinsurance.com, Boxx with a double X. The other one is go to LinkedIn, for example, and just reach out there directly to me. And, we also, can direct any who's interested to their broker and get their broker to contact us to start selling. We don't sell direct to consumer. We sell B2B or B2B2C. So, if you go to your existing broker and tell them that you really want, for example, to look at cyber coverage on your home renewal, I'm sure they're going to be interested in talking to us and send us the information, and we'll deal with them directly. So either way, we're happy to be contacted and talk to them.
All right. I'll link all that up in the show notes too at geekleader.com so people can go there and click over and connect with you and get to your website and your LinkedIn and all that good stuff. So, Hilario, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, John. Thank you very much for the invite.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.